Hey yo, this is Dash.
Yeah.
Hey yo, this is Dash, and here we go with the answers to the Q&A. So a few weeks ago, probably about a week and a half ago, I asked you guys to ask me some questions. Just because it was about time to do a question and answer type deal, so it was a ask me almost anything. All right, so first question, and I'm trying to answer these questions in order in which I received them, so please bear with me. This question comes from Mark. Mark asks, he says, hey Dash, what makes up your favorite meal? Favorite romantic meal for you and your spouse, and favorite meal for the family? So one of my favorite meals that I've ever cooked for my wife, and by extension my family, because typically I don't just cook for her and I. This past Valentine's Day, if it wasn't this Valentine's Day, it was last year. When I say I went above and beyond, I had steak, I had lobster tail, I had shrimp. It was like a plethora of different things. If I can find a picture from Instagram, I will, and insert it here. Yeah, so that was my favorite meal I cooked for my spouse and myself, and also by extension my family. And then one of the things that I started doing recently is I started making crab pots, kind of similar to the crab pots that you could get like at a Joe's Crab Shack. But you know, I would do like a big crab boil with you know, like snow crab legs or Dungeness. Actually, I prefer Dungeness over snow crab legs. So crab legs nonetheless. Some sausage, some potatoes, some corn. Those, you know, that particular meal is almost always a hit with my family. All right, so next question is from Larry Highland. So Larry lives out in California. You know, I do my research when I look into these guys, into these questions. So Larry lives out in California. I don't remember where exactly in California, but he says, hey brother, he says, man, I could use some good advice on running and starting a barbecue catering business. I just recently started one here in SoCal. Well, that answers my question. It isn't going as good as I want yet. What I have done, I have gotten amazing reviews from. I'm confident in my barbecuing and my recipes. Any ideas you have would help. I've done my best with having it on social media as well. Thanks, bro, and always enjoy your videos. All right, so Larry's question is going to be probably the most in-depth thing I have to talk about while I'm here during this Q&A, simply because I have some pretty real-world experience with this. And Larry, honestly enough, I started writing a book about this, but I kind of lost interest in it because I'm not a very good writer. So maybe I can take some of the things that I wrote or plan to write down and actually express them verbally in front of the camera, and we can possibly turn what I was trying to put into a book into a video series. But to answer your question, how to get your business off of the ground. Now, I will tell you how I started my business, and we can go from there, and then you can kind of tailor it to your own experience. So first and foremost, I had a great group of friends. My group of friends, I would cook because I would cook, and my wife and my family kind of got tired of eating all of the food that I was cooking. And being the food that I was cooking, you know, pork shoulders, briskets, things like that. Because they got tired of eating what I had, what I started to do was take food to work with me. I would give it out, you know, crack sample here, crack sample there, crack sample here. And over time, people started saying, hey, you know, how much would it cost me for you to cook this for me? How much would it cost me for you to cook that for me? So it basically got to the point where people were offering to pay me to either cook food for them or to buy food from me. Once I got that pretty much that go ahead, where that head nod to say, okay, people are willing to pay for what I have, it became an instance of how do I get it out there, okay? And the way I got it out there was Instagram. Now I'll tell you, in the beginning, I'm anti-Apple. I do not like Apple. I loathe Apple is my favorite hashtag. But when Instagram first came out, it was an Apple only thing. When Instagram finally came out for Android phones, I got on it for like 2 weeks and despised it. It was like blah blah blah. This is horrible. After a little while longer of getting on Instagram to watch other people and see what other people were doing, I saw people were posting a lot of pictures of food. So when I cooked different things, when I made dinner for my family, when I did other things like that, I would post pictures of my food on Instagram. It became or got to the point where I was posting pictures of my barbecue on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. So basically what I was doing was I was posting pictures to Instagram, to Facebook, and to Twitter, right? Once I discovered what hashtags were, I discovered that I could use the geographical hashtag to find other people who were like-minded, who liked food and or barbecue. And that's how I grew my business. What I did was I used to sit at work. I used to work at a call center, a help desk call center, okay, service desk. And as I was sitting bored talking to people, I would be scrolling through Instagram for a specific hashtag. The hashtag I used was a geographical hashtag, Baltimore. Luckily, I live in a big enough metropolitan area where once I posted enough pictures out there saying that I did barbecue and I have brisket and I do ribs and I do chicken and I do wings and I do, you know, whatever else the case may be, the point was not for me to get people to look at my page just because off of the hashtags I used in my pictures. The point was for me to use the hashtags to look at their pictures and to like their pictures. And this is one thing that most people do not understand. You don't get people following you by having hashtags out there. You get people following you by actively looking and searching those hashtags that are out there, liking a couple pictures, commenting on a picture or two. Instagram is funny though, the way their algorithm has changed. You can't just take a blanket statement and say, hey, check me out, I do barbecue in this particular area, maybe I'll deliver it to you, or I have barbecue for sale. Instagram does not like that at all, because then you're spamming folks. So what you do, again, you find a geographical hashtag. Let's use Baltimore, which is what I did. I used Baltimore and search Baltimore. When I would go through people's pictures, I would primarily like food pictures. Why? If they're taking pictures of food, they're interested in food. So if I have a picture of food in my profile, they most likely would be interested in said picture, and they might scroll on it or click on it and read the description to see what it is I had for sale. Okay? In my particular instance, what I ended up doing was I found someone who had a bigger following than I did. I liked a couple of her pictures, and this went on for throughout maybe a month. I was liking her pictures, and she did food in Baltimore, and she was selling the food basically out of the trunk of her car. And guess what? I wanted to do something similar to what she did, so I watched what she was doing for a few weeks, and then I reached out to her and I said, hey, actually I didn't reach out to her, I apologize. She was having a little pop-up, and it was one of those deals where she says, hey, I'm gonna be out for deliveries this afternoon, but while I'm doing my deliveries, I'm gonna be stopping here. Well, luckily enough, where she was stopping to sell, and she sold banana pudding, okay? Luckily enough, where she stopped and sold banana pudding was not too far away from where I picked my daughter up from daycare at the time. What I did was I went and I said to her, I said, hey, I really like what you're doing. I really wanted to taste your pudding. I've been trying to catch up with you. I hadn't been trying to catch up with her. I had been trying to catch up with her for a month, but not because I couldn't catch up with her, but because I was watching what she was doing. So after that period of time, I went and spoke to her, and I said to her point blank, hey, I really like what you're doing. I would really like to sit down and talk to you, you know, one day and try to understand how it is you're doing what you're doing. And, you know, because I want to apply it to something, you know, what I'm doing. And I said, hey, you know, my name is I'm Scott, and I'm the guy behind Still Drum Smokers Barbecue. And you know what happened? She said, oh my gosh, I've seen you liking my pictures on my page. I've been back to your page and I see some of the food that you've been cooking. It looks really good. And I said, well, awesome. That's great to hear that you know, I'm taking the time to come back and look at my page. You know, I said, I'm a little guy, I'm just starting out. At this point, I might have had 200 Instagram followers, okay? So then we decided that, you know, I think I might have been out of work because, you know, medical leave or something along those lines. And I said to her, I said, listen, is there any way we can link up and maybe get a cup of coffee and, you know, we can talk shop about how you're doing what you're doing in and around Baltimore, because I would like to do something similar. She says, all right, meet me for coffee on a Monday at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm like, cool. Then before I left, she says, hey, do you have any food with you? And I said, unfortunately, I don't. I said, but what I will do is I'll make sure I have some food for when we link up for coffee. So fast forward another week or so, we link up for coffee, okay? I go to the Starbucks and I'm sitting down. I'm so excited. I'm about to talk to, you know, this woman about how she's selling this pudding in and around Baltimore City, and she seems to be doing well while she's doing it, this, that, and the other. And I want to apply what she's doing to my, you know, barbecue, right? She blew me off. True story. She blew me off completely. I sat there for like an hour and a half, okay? Now, mind you, I had to pick up my kids who went to school on the other side, my sons, who went to school on the other side of town. So I had to leave from my side of town and get to pick them up within a, you know, at a certain period of time. So probably about an hour, 45 minutes before I had to leave, what I ended up doing was I sent her a text message, and the text message simply stated, I can understand you forgetting about me. I took a picture of the half a pound of pulled pork that I had. I said, you know, I could understand you forgetting about me, but had you tasted this pulled pork, you would have never forgotten about it. She replied, and she was very apologetic, and, you know, so I'm so sorry, I forgot. I got tied up with something else, X, Y, and Z. I'm like, okay, cool, no problem, whatever. In 20 minutes, she came out to where I was, and the whole thing was I had a half an hour to get across town. So she basically got there like 20 minutes or 25 minutes before I had to leave, and basically I gave her her food in the parking lot, gave her a card or two, and I had to jet. Like I said, I had to get across town to pick up my sons, or they would have had to, you know, been stuck on the principal's couch. And that's what I did. I left it alone, walked away, and that was like a Monday or a Tuesday. That following Thursday, maybe, all of a sudden, I'm looking at my notifications via Instagram, and I have like 40 new followers. What the hell has happened? Like, really, what's going on? Look, check another, you know, hour or two later, I have another 25 followers. That first day, I gained 200, 250 followers from her taking a picture of something I posted on my page. It wasn't even the pulled pork that I gave her. It was something else totally pretty much unrelated to what I gave her. And she said, oh my goodness, I can't believe this. I just had some of the best barbecue I've had ever. And at the time, she might have had 4,000 or 5,000 followers, okay? Of those 4,000 or 5,000 followers, I think I got 10% over the next, 10% of her followers in the next 2 or 3 days, okay? My followers jumped from about 250 to probably 700 in the span of 3 or 4 days, okay? Now, mind you, that first day she posted something, it was either a Thursday or a Friday. That very next day, that Saturday, I remember very vividly, I got an order. Someone called me up or sent me a text message and said, hey, I need to try some of your food. I want to try some brisket, and I want to try some She wanted ribs and she wanted chicken wings, or no, I didn't do wings at the time. So she wanted brisket and she wanted ribs. Even if she just wanted ribs, the whole thing was, her Instagram name is Carmen Booze, okay? Pretty sure it's Carmen Booze, but that's not her name. I think her name is like Ikea. Nonetheless, the very first time she posted, the pudding lady, okay, the pudding lady posted a picture of my food, I got business. I say all of that to say, what you have to do to grow your business is to get your food and your name out there to someone who's bigger than you are in your community, in your area, in order for them to take a stab at your food. It is all about, unfortunately, it's all about social media influencers is the buzzword that people are using nowadays to talk about this. And what those social media influencers do is they influence people, point blank. People are sheep, all right? And if I say something is good, then you're like, oh, you know what? Dash said that thing was good. I'm gonna go try that out, okay? Or I'm gonna go sample it, or I'm gonna go, you know, this or that. That's why people put commercials on TV and tell other folks just how good things are. That's how Yelp works, but we're not gonna get into Yelp, all right? Anyway, I said all of that to say, I told you that whole long story to get you to use geographical hashtags. Use the hashtags to get people to look back at your page. I'm not sure, but I think the first time, actually, Larry, I think your page is private. If your page is private, make sure it's public, first and foremost, because I tell you what, me personally, if I look at someone's page and they look at my page and they like a bunch of pictures, and you know, I'm all grateful when someone looks at my page and does those type of things as far as Instagram. But if I look back at your page, and especially if it's a business and if it's private, I will never look back at it again. Never. Not because I don't want to, not because I'm being a jerk. It's because if you have something to hide, I don't want to do business with you, period. If you want to tell me that I'm hiding my account because I don't want people to steal what you have, dog, Larry, you are a prime example of me having my stuff private. If I my profile and your profile, it pretty much says the same exact thing. I'm just, you know, calling it like I see it. But I'm not mad at that, because guess what? If I can help you, you know, do what you want to do in SoCal, so be it. But make your page unprivate. If you're gonna post stuff about your family, create a private page that's personal, and create a business page that is just that business. You're out there to sell, you know, food and do barbecue and do business, act accordingly. All right, hopefully that long story answers your question. So next question comes from, all right, so I tell you what, I did my homework, and this one is Doctor, okay? Doctor, and it's either Shavella or I think it's gonna be Dr. Shavella. Okay, so this next question is from a doctor, okay? Yep, I do my homework. So Dr. Shavella, it says, what do you use on that awesome beard? Yours looks so soft, and I can tell you it is pretty soft, all right? It says, I live in Atlanta and I saw Rick Ross's. My son has grown one. I think he needs some Ultra Perm. Now I can tell you what, this is a all natural beard. I have never used any sort of chemicals in my beard or on my hair when I had some, other than like natural oils and things like that. For the past probably 6 months, I haven't used anything in my beard. Maybe not 6 months, maybe the past 3. I haven't used anything in my beard just because I ran out of the beard balm or the beard like butter that my wife made for me, and I just haven't bought any because I know that I can make it. So when I did, and actually I just got her to make me some last night, so oddly enough, I kind of totally forgot about this. But what we did was we used some shea butter, some coconut oil, and then like some grapeseed oil or just some olive oil, and whipped it up in a kid's blender, like a baby food blender. You know, I have 3 children, so we have those little teeny, almost like an individual serving size blender, right? Whipped it up, and then what I did was I took some essence oils, and I made it smell good. So this last batch of beard balm, beard butter, I would more say beard butter that I made. It has shea butter, coconut oil. She didn't use any grapeseed oil or olive oil because the coconut oil was viscous enough, it was liquid enough because it's so warm. And then I used a little bit of citronella, I used a little bit of orange, I used a lot of lemongrass, and I used a lot of peppermint. So those are the oils that I used. I think I even might have put like a couple drops of tea tree oil, but you can go on Amazon and find like a pack of 10 of those different or various essential oils that will help if you make a balm or a butter for your beard, make it smell better. Oddly enough too, when I use the beard balm or butter, I don't know what you want to call it, typically it's when I get out of the shower and my beard is still wet. I'll rub it in so that the moisture, the oil keeps the moisture in the beard. And I have plenty of pictures of my beard just glistening because it's just great. One of the side effects though is because of the fact that all of those things that I mentioned are good for your hair as well as your skin. Typically by the time I finish rubbing it on my beard, I rub it all on my face and in my hands, and sometimes on my ashy elbows. All right, so when I use it or when I have it available to me, I don't necessarily have and or use as much lotion. Hopefully that makes some sense. And it's all natural stuff, so that's pretty cool. Next question. All right, this comes from me, myself, and I Farmer. He says, opinion on pellet smokers. Seems like a set it and forget it. That's exactly how I think of them. I really do think of a pellet smoker as an outdoor oven that you actually have a better scent and or flavor from. I would love to buy a pellet smoker. I just don't have the $400 or $500 to buy like a teeny little one. Honestly enough, my wife's grill is pretty much rotting away, and I want to buy a pellet smoker for her to use. It's just haven't quite ponied up the money for it just yet. All right, so this next one is not a question. This comes from Chuck. Chuck is from the Winking Pig Barbecue. Chuck is in Indianapolis, I think. I think he said is maybe not Indianapolis, but maybe it's Indiana. All right, and he was talking about how people ask him all the time about what's in his food. People, I'm gonna say pet peeve, but one of the things I dislike most when people find out I do barbecue, they ask me, how long does such and such take to cook? Well, here's my problem with that. And this is something that you probably heard me say before. I don't cook things for time, I cook things for temperature. So if you're asking me how long something takes to cook, I know already that the conversation is not going the way that we need it to go. We have become so dependent on cooking at a specific temperature that we have forgotten that you need to cook something to an internal temperature rather than a specific time. Because with a grill, especially with a open fire or fire, a grill that's using wood, okay, the temperature in the smoker is going to go up and it's going to down, it's going to go up and down, it's going to ebb and it's going to flow, which means that there could be 2 hours where it's at 270 degrees, or let's say it's in 45 minutes to an hour where it creeps up to 270 degrees, and then it's going to slowly come back down to maybe 250 degrees, and then it could get all the way as low as 225, and then you add more wood, and then it slowly starts to go back up to 275. So your average temperature might be 250 degrees, but you never know. You might have had it closer to 275 longer than you had it closer to 225, and your average could be 260. With that being said, things are going to take a different amount of time to cook, but things will always hit the same. When things hit the same internal temperature, they're going to be done. That is the thing that I would like to impress upon folks, or usually I try to impress upon folks when they talk about how long something takes to cook. I don't cook the time, I cook the internal temperature. So typically when people say, how long did X, Y, Z take? How long were you cooking this? I cooked it until it was done. And I usually hold a straight face. So usually people either get it or they don't. All right. So Mark, I guess Mark got bored and he wanted to ask another question, or he had another question. He says, Dash, another question for you. Do you give your seasoned meats time to absorb seasoning or place right into the barbecue rig? You know, like he says, when I cook a steak, I season the steak 24 hours ahead of time with Johnny seasoning salt, placed inside a plastic bag and refrigerate. Flipping it side to side every few hours, if I remember. LOL, right? I've been there. I'll pull it out of the fridge and allow it to come up to room temperature before cooking it hot and fast until rare to medium rare, letting it rest for 5 to 10 minutes. I know steak is not barbecue, but I get the picture, and I certainly do. Now, I'll tell you this, more often than not, typically when I start my fire, in between the time where it takes for me to start my fire and to get the smoker to the point where it's going to where that bad smoke burns off, it's typically the only amount of time I take to season my meat, for the most part. There are times from time to time when I will season my food ahead of time because I know it's going to take me a little longer to season it than Golly, these bugs are driving me nuts. Sorry. There are times when I do season my meat ahead of time when I'm pressed for time. Hopefully that makes sense. So if I'm going to be cooking a lot of food and seasoning a lot of things, it might take me an hour and a half, 2 hours to season everything that I have to cook. So what I might do is I might season stuff ahead of time. Like I might season it the night before, put it in the refrigerator, or I might season it the morning of I'm getting ready to cook, or in that afternoon. So when I start my fire that evening, I can start my fire and then I'll pull stuff right out of the refrigerator and put it into the smoker. I don't typically season things very much in advance. There are certain times where I'll season things for my family longer or ahead of time, but I usually never marinate. Like, I don't marinate meats like brisket or pork shoulder, if that's what your question. I just don't. I don't have a good reason or answer for it, aside from the fact that I don't want the characteristics of that seasoning to seep necessarily into the meat and start to draw. I don't want to sweat. Like, I don't want to sweat my brisket out. Okay, if you season a brisket with a good amount of salt and pepper and you let it sit for a half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour plus, what happens is some of the moisture from inside of the muscle gets pulled out of the muscle. I don't want that. I want the seasoning to be on the outside, and then I throw it right into the smoker so that that heat can start pushing all of those seasoning and that flavor inside of the brisket, and we can pretty much go from there. So unfortunately, I know this video is pretty dang long. It's almost 30 minutes long, and the major point, or the major question here that popped up was how to grow your barbecue business. If you guys have any other questions or want me to talk more about that book that I was talking about or I started, let me know in the comments below, and maybe I can, like, I think I have maybe 8 or 10 chapters written out so far, or at least thought out, and I can start talking about those things here. If that's something you guys want to see, please make sure you leave a comment down below. Thank you again, as always, for watching, and if you have any other questions you want to answer, try to leave some more comments. All right, we might do this every now and again, and we can go from there. See you soon.